All right, so we're going to deep dive into something a little weird today. Uh, we're seeing a resurgence of the flu,
Mhm.
and it's actually gotten so bad in some places that schools are being shut down because of it.
Wow.
And this is after we already had our initial flu season. So
Mhm.
this is like a second peak. And it's a little strange. What's
Yeah,
your
it is
opinion?
strange. Yeah, researchers are kind of calling it this immunity gap phenomenon. And it's basically like,
Okay.
remember during the pandemic, we were all like
Yeah.
super careful, like masking and, distancing and all that stuff.
Like the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, we basically kind of unintentionally shielded ourselves from a lot of common viruses,
Hmm.
including the flu. And so now that we're back to like
Yeah.
hugging and handshakes and all that,
Yeah.
our immune systems are kind of playing catch up and sometimes a little too enthusiastically.
So it's not just that we're more vulnerable, it's that our immune system might be like
Right.
overreacting now.
Yeah, kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was reading a study about how this might even have like long-term implications for our immunity.
Right.
Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So this is some really fascinating research that suggests that this lack of exposure
Okay.
to these common viruses might have actually like altered the way our immune systems develop and like remember threats.
Wow.
And this could potentially lead to more severe symptoms when we do encounter these viruses in the future.
Hmm.
It's a very complex issue, and
Yeah.
scientists are still trying to unravel all the intricacies of it.
That's a little unsettling, but also really interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of unsettling, though, the numbers for this second flu peak are
Yeah.
a little alarming.
They are pretty eye-opening for sure. So we're looking at over 20 million flu cases,
Wow.
250,000 people needing hospitalization,
Right.
and over 11,000 deaths, unfortunately.
Wow.
So it's, a stark reminder that the flu is serious.
Yeah, those are similar to the numbers that we saw before the pandemic, though, right?
Right.
So this is more of a return to a pre-pandemic normal
Exactly.
than something that's totally unprecedented.
It's not a sign of some super flu,
Okay.
anything like that. It's more like our immune systems are readjusting
Okay.
to a world where these viruses are circulating again.
Okay, that's a little reassuring, but even if it's normal,
Yeah.
it's not something we want to mess with.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of not messing with it,
Mm.
I know a lot of people think that it's too late now to get a flu shot.
Right.
Is that true?
That's a common misconception, but it's actually not too late.
Okay.
Even though we're in the thick of flu season, getting vaccinated can still offer significant protection.
Okay.
It does take about 2 weeks for the vaccine to become fully effective,
Gotcha.
but it's definitely worth it.
So it's kind of like a cheat sheet
Yeah.
for our immune system.
Exactly.
Are there any downsides to this cheat sheet, though? Could it make our immune response, like, less effective in the long run?
That's an interesting question, and there is actually some debate about that.
Yeah.
So some researchers believe that relying too heavily on vaccines without natural exposure to these viruses could potentially weaken some aspects of our immune response.
Right.
Again, this is a very complex issue with many factors to consider,
Yeah.
and we need more research to fully understand the long-term implications of all of this.
It sounds like a very delicate balance
It is.
between, like, protecting ourselves and also allowing our immune systems to learn naturally.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're providing support, but also allowing our bodies to kind of develop their own defenses.
Yeah, we've all heard those, like, above the neck, below the neck guidelines for,
Right.
Is it a cold? Is it the flu?
Right.
But you were saying earlier that the flu can be much more serious than we think.
Yes.
So what are some of the complications that can arise? And, like, when should someone absolutely see a doctor?
Yeah, those below the neck guidelines are a good starting point.
Yeah.
But they're not foolproof.
Right.
The flu can definitely mimic a cold in the early stages, but with the flu, those below the neck symptoms,
Right.
like muscle aches, fever, chills, fatigue,
Yeah.
those tend to be a lot more intense with the flu.
And what about those more serious complications? When should someone be concerned?
So the flu can lead to things like pneumonia,
Oh, wow.
bronchitis,
Okay.
even heart problems in some cases.
Wow.
And if you have any pre-existing conditions like asthma or diabetes,
Right.
you're at a higher risk for these complications. So it's really crucial to see a doctor if your symptoms worsen rapidly,
Okay.
if you have difficulty breathing, or if your fever is very high and doesn't respond to medication.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And here's something else that's kind of unnerving. I was reading that we can spread the flu even before we feel sick.
Yes.
Talk about a sneaky virus.
It is a sneaky one.
So how long are we actually contagious?
So you can actually be contagious for a day or two before symptoms even show up, which is one of the reasons why it spreads so easily.
Yeah.
And then after symptoms start, you're usually contagious for another 5 to 7 days.
Gosh, so we could be spreading it without even knowing it.
Exactly.
That makes those at-home flu tests sound even more valuable.
Right.
Do you think they're a game changer in terms of prevention?
They definitely have the potential to be, because if you know you have the flu,
Yeah.
you're more likely to take steps to prevent spreading it, like staying home from work
Right.
or social events.
Oh, I know I would.
Yeah.
If I knew I had the flu, I would hunker down.
Absolutely.
Speaking of riding it out, I know there's that medication Tamiflu
Yes.
that's supposed to help shorten the duration of the flu.
Right.
Can you give us the lowdown on that? Like, does everyone need it?
So Tamiflu is an antiviral medication that can help reduce the severity and duration of flu symptoms.
Okay.
But it's not a magic bullet for everyone.
So who really needs Tamiflu?
It's particularly beneficial for people who are at higher risk of complications from the flu. So this includes young children, pregnant women, older adults, and people with chronic illnesses like asthma, diabetes, or heart disease.
Gotcha. So it's important to talk to your doctor to see if Tamiflu is right for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Tamiflu is a valuable tool, but not a cure-all, and it's always best to consult with a doctor.
Right.
I want to switch gears a bit and talk about another illness that's been making a resurgence along with the flu.
Okay.
Whooping cough.
Yeah.
You know, it's known for that distinctive whoop sound during coughing fits.
Right.
But what makes it so dangerous, especially for infants?
So whooping cough, or pertussis, is caused by bacteria that attacks the lining of the airways,
Okay.
making it difficult to breathe. And in infants, the airways are so tiny
Right.
and easily inflamed that whooping cough can be life-threatening.
Wow.
It's actually one of the leading causes of death in babies worldwide.
That's terrifying. What makes infants so susceptible to it, besides just having smaller airways?
Well, infants don't start receiving the whooping cough vaccine, the DTaP, until they're 2 months old.
Okay.
And they need multiple doses for full protection.
Okay.
So they're really vulnerable in those first few months of life.
So how can we protect these tiny humans that can't be fully vaccinated?
Right.
What's our role in preventing the spread of whooping cough?
So the best way to protect infants is through something called cocooning.
Cocooning.
Cocooning, and it means basically making sure that everyone who comes into close contact with the baby
Okay.
is fully vaccinated against whooping cough.
Okay.
So that includes parents, siblings, grandparents, any caregivers.
So it's like creating a shield
Exactly.
around the baby with everyone else's immunity.
Exactly.
And for adults, the vaccine that protects against whooping cough is the Tdap.
That's right. The Tdap vaccine
Right.
protects against tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis.
Right.
So it's super important for adults to get this booster,
Yeah.
not only to protect themselves, but to protect those who are too young or too vulnerable to be vaccinated.
Right. It's like a community effort
It is.
to keep everyone safe,
Absolutely.
especially the most vulnerable among us.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in preventing the spread of these illnesses.
Well, it seems like our immune systems have a lot to contend with these days, from, this resurgence of the flu to
Yeah,
whooping cough.
definitely.
It begs the question, now that we're back to like, quote unquote, normal levels of viral activity,
Right.
what are some things we can do to like strengthen our immune systems
Yeah.
and stay healthy? Because nobody likes to be sick, right?
No, absolutely not. And that's a great question. And there's actually a lot we can do
Okay.
to bolster our defenses and support our overall well-being.
Okay.
One of the most effective strategies, as we discussed, is vaccination.
Right.
Staying up to date on recommended vaccines,
Yeah.
including the flu shot. And Tdap is absolutely crucial
Mm-hmm.
for protecting ourselves and those around us.
So besides vaccination, what other like healthy habits should we be focusing on?
Another crucial element is managing stress. When we're chronically stressed, our bodies produce cortisol, a hormone that can actually suppress our immune response.
Oh, wow. So stress actually makes us more vulnerable.
It can, yeah. And so finding healthy ways to manage stress,
Right.
whether that's through exercise, meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, pursuing hobbies we enjoy,
Right.
those are all essential for a well-functioning immune system.
So it's not just about like avoiding germs. It's about like creating an environment where our bodies can thrive
Exactly.
and fight back.
You got it.
What about nutrition?
Oh, nutrition is huge.
Yeah,
Eating a balanced diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains provides our bodies with the essential vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants
right.
that they need to function optimally and ward off those pesky pathogens.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of not eating enough veggies sometimes.
Yeah.
But what about exercise?
Exercise is so important.
How does physical activity help on a cellular level?
Regular exercise helps boost circulation, which allows immune cells to move more freely throughout the body, ready to respond to threats.
So it's like giving our immune cells a workout, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keeping them in tip-top shape.
Right. And then, of course, there's the everyday habits that we can adopt to minimize our exposure to germs.
Yes.
Like washing our hands, covering our coughs,
Right.
and trying to avoid close contact with people who are sick.
Exactly. Those may seem simple, but they can significantly reduce our risk of infection.
Right. So being mindful and taking those small but impactful steps.
Absolutely.
And, of course, if we do get sick, staying home and resting
Yes.
is key,
Absolutely.
not only to give our bodies a chance to recover,
Yeah.
but also to prevent spreading it.
Exactly. Win-win.
Win-win.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about prevention, but I'm curious about your personal experiences. Have you noticed any changes in your own susceptibility
Yeah.
to colds or the flu since the pandemic?
You know, I have felt like I've been getting sick more often lately.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks to that immunity gap we were talking about. It's definitely a reminder that our immune systems need exposure to these viruses to stay sharp.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. It's like our bodies are recalibrating
Yeah.
after a few years of isolation. What about you, dear listener? Have you noticed this too? We would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
But before you chime in, we want to share a kind of fascinating twist in this whole flu saga.
Okay.
We've been talking about the flu's unexpected second peak,
Right.
but there's another illness that's been kind of sneaking up alongside it,
Okay.
whooping cough.
Uh-huh.
You might know it by that distinctive whoop sound during coughing spells.
Oh,
But what makes whooping cough so dangerous, especially for infants?
so whooping cough, or pertussis, is caused by a bacterium that attacks the lining of the airways,
Okay.
making it difficult to breathe. And in infants, the airways are so small
Right?
and easily inflamed that whooping cough can be life-threatening.
Oh, wow.
It's actually one of the leading causes of death in babies worldwide.
That's terrifying. What makes infants so susceptible besides just having smaller airways?
Well, infants don't start receiving the whooping cough vaccine,
Oh,
the
damn.
DTaP, until they're 2 months old.
Okay.
And they need multiple doses for full protection.
Right.
So they're very vulnerable in those first few months of life.
So how can we protect these tiny humans that can't be fully vaccinated?
Right.
What's our role in preventing the spread of whooping cough?
So the best way to protect infants is through something called cocooning.
Cocooning.
Cocooning, and it means basically making sure that everyone who comes into close contact with the baby
Okay.
is fully vaccinated against whooping cough.
Right.
So that includes parents, siblings, grandparents, any caregivers.
So it's like creating a shield around the
Right.
baby with everyone else's immunity.
Exactly.
And for adults, the vaccine that protects against whooping cough is the Tdap.
That's right. The Tdap vaccine
Okay.
protects against tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis.
Gotcha.
So it's incredibly important for adults to get this booster. Not only to protect themselves, but to protect those who are too young or too vulnerable to be vaccinated.
Right. It's like a community effort
It is.
to keep everyone safe,
Yeah.
especially the most vulnerable among us.
Precisely. We all have a role to play in preventing the spread of these serious illnesses.
And that brings us to kind of another interesting aspect of this whooping cough resurgence.
Okay.
It seems to be hitting infants particularly hard in certain communities.
Yeah.
We're seeing outbreaks in areas with lower vaccination rates, which really highlights the importance of herd immunity.
Absolutely.
Herd immunity, that's when a large enough portion of the population is vaccinated
Right.
that it makes it harder for disease to spread.
Exactly. When vaccination rates are high, it creates this protective barrier
Right.
that helps to shield those who can't be vaccinated, like infants or those with compromised immune systems.
Gotcha.
But when those vaccination rates drop, that barrier weakens and we see these preventable diseases reemerge.
That's a powerful reminder of how interconnected we all are. When it comes to public health, our individual choices can have like a ripple effect
Absolutely.
on the entire community.
It's a web for sure.
Yeah. And that brings us to another crucial point, the importance of understanding how vaccines work.
Right.
I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, so
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your insights on how these amazing inventions actually function within our bodies.
So vaccines work by introducing a weakened or inactive form of a virus or bacteria into the body.
Okay.
And this triggers an immune response, essentially teaching your body how to recognize and fight off the real deal if you ever encounter it.
So it's like giving our immune systems a practice run,
Yeah,
so they're ready for the real fight.
exactly. And the amazing thing is that vaccines not only protect the individual who receives them,
Right.
but they contribute to that herd immunity we were talking about,
Yeah.
protecting the community as a whole.
So it's a collective effort
It is.
to safeguard public health,
Absolutely.
especially for those who are most vulnerable. We've been talking about the immunity gap and this idea that our immune systems are maybe overreacting now,
Right.
that we're exposed to more viruses.
Right.
How do these two concepts intersect, and what does it mean for our overall health?
That's a really interesting question, and it highlights this complex interplay
Yeah.
between our immune systems and the environment. So on the one hand,
Right.
we have vaccines which train our immune systems to recognize and fight off specific threats.
Okay.
On the other hand, we have this immunity gap, which suggests our immune systems might be overreacting
Yeah.
to these common viruses because they haven't seen them in a while.
So it's like this balancing act.
It is a balancing act.
We want our immune systems to be strong and responsive,
Yeah.
but not overly reactive,
Right.
to the point where it causes more harm than good.
Exactly. And this is where those lifestyle factors that we were talking about
Right.
come into play.
Right.
By supporting our overall health through good sleep, stress management, balanced diet, we can help modulate our immune response and make sure it's functioning optimally.
So it's not just about the vaccines. It's about creating a healthy environment for our
Okay.
bodies to thrive.
Exactly.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the availability of at-home flu tests.
Okay.
These seem like a game changer in terms of prevention.
They do.
But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how they might impact our behavior and our decision-making.
I think at-home flu tests have the potential to really empower individuals
Okay.
to make more informed decisions about their health and the health of others.
Right.
Because if you know you have the flu, you might change your behavior. You might be more likely to stay home and avoid spreading the virus.
I know. I would,
Yeah,
if I had a quick and easy way to confirm I had the flu, I would totally isolate myself
absolutely.
and not risk getting other people sick.
What about you, dear listener? Would knowing for sure that you had the flu change your behavior? It's really interesting to think about how readily available tests might shift our perceptions of illness and responsibility.
It does raise questions about access and equity, too.
Right.
Are these at-home tests available to everyone?
Yeah.
Or are there disparities in terms of affordability?
That's a crucial point, and it's something we need to be mindful of. We want to make sure everyone has the tools and resources they need to protect themselves and others,
Right.
regardless of socioeconomic status or location.
Equity and access are so important
They are fundamental.
when it comes to public health.
Absolutely. We can't leave anyone behind in this
Yeah.
fight against these pesky viruses.
Well, it seems like we've covered a lot of ground already, from this unexpected resurgence of the flu
Yeah,
to the importance of vaccination, the immunity gap, and
Yeah.
the power of lifestyle choices.
absolutely.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you, dear listener, with a thought-provoking question. What role do you think personal responsibility plays in protecting public health? Where does individual freedom end and collective responsibility begin?
That's a great question.
It's a complex issue
It is.
with no easy answers, but it's something worth pondering
Absolutely.
as we navigate this ever-evolving landscape of public health.
A very timely question for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that was a great question that you posed to our listeners about, the balance between individual choice and the responsibility we have to protect each other. It's
Yeah.
something we grapple with constantly in public health.
Right. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah,
Do we prioritize individual autonomy above all else?
right.
Or do we acknowledge that our actions have consequences that extend beyond ourselves?
It's like a seesaw,
Right.
constantly shifting. And, during the pandemic, we saw this real emphasis on collective action.
Right.
Masks, lockdowns, all aimed at protecting the most vulnerable.
Right.
And now, as we transition back to normal, that balance is being renegotiated.
It's almost like a social experiment in real time.
It is.
We're seeing how individual behaviors and beliefs influence the health of the community.
Right.
So speaking of individual behaviors,
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you think our experiences during the pandemic might have shaped our attitudes towards public health in the long term?
That's a fascinating question, and it's one that researchers are actively studying.
Okay.
Early indications suggest that there's a range of responses,
Right.
Some people are eager to, shed those pandemic precautions
Yeah.
and return to business as usual.
Right. Back to normal.
Right. And others are understandably more cautious.
Right.
And might continue to do things like masking or social distancing, especially during flu season.
Makes sense that there wouldn't be like a one-size-fits-all reaction.
Right.
We all process these experiences differently,
Right.
and our risk tolerance varies, but beyond personal choices.
Right.
What about the larger systems and structures that influence public health?
Oh.
What lessons have we learned, and how can we apply them moving forward?
That's a crucial point. The pandemic really exposed the cracks in our public health infrastructure.
Yeah.
We saw how underfunding, lack of preparedness, and even misinformation
Right.
hampered our response.
Totally. Remember those early days
Yeah,
when testing was scarce and we were scrambling for like reliable information?
Exactly.
It felt like we were flying blind.
it was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And so now the question is, will we invest in strengthening those systems?
Right.
And making sure we're better prepared for the next health crisis?
Right.
Will we prioritize science-based decision-making
Right.
and effective communication?
It feels like there's a real opportunity here for positive change.
I agree.
We've seen firsthand
We have.
how neglecting public health can have devastating consequences,
Absolutely.
not just for individuals, but for society as a whole.
Right.
Change requires action.
It does.
So what are some concrete steps that we can take as individuals and as a society to create a more resilient and informed approach to public health?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
and it's not one I can answer single-handedly,
Right.
but I do believe it starts with education and awareness.
Okay.
We need to empower people with the knowledge and skills
Okay.
to make informed decisions about their health and to advocate for policies that support public well-being.
So it's about promoting health literacy,
Yes.
not just understanding the basics,
Right.
but being able to critically evaluate information and navigate the complexities of the healthcare system.
Exactly. And it also involves fostering a culture of open dialogue and respect.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to be able to have difficult conversations about health and science
Right.
without resorting to fear-mongering or judgment.
Right. We need to create spaces where people feel safe to ask questions and share their concerns and learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Speaking of learning,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more about those lifestyle strategies we touched on earlier that can help us build stronger immune systems
Okay.
and stay healthier overall.
Sure.
We talked about sleep and stress management, but what else can we do to bolster our defenses?
Well, let's talk about the gut microbiome.
Okay, the gut microbiome.
Yeah, that fascinating community of trillions of microorganisms
Yeah.
that live in our digestive tracts.
I've heard so much about it lately. It seems like it plays a role in everything,
It really does.
from digestion to immunity to mental health.
Yes.
But how does it actually impact our immune system?
So the gut microbiome plays this really vital role in training and regulating our immune system.
Okay.
It helps our bodies distinguish between harmless substances and potential threats.
So it's like having this team of microscopic bodyguards
Yeah,
patrolling our insides,
exactly.
making sure everything's in order.
Right. And the diversity of our gut microbiome is key.
Okay.
A rich and varied community of microorganisms is associated with a stronger immune response.
So how do we cultivate this diverse gut microbiome?
Yeah.
What should we be eating?
A diet rich in fiber is crucial.
Oh.
Fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains,
Right.
those provide the fuel that these beneficial bacteria thrive on.
Makes sense. It's all about feeding the good guys.
Exactly.
What about fermented foods?
Yeah.
I know those are often touted for their probiotic benefits.
So fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir,
Right.
those are great sources of probiotics,
Okay.
which are live bacteria that can contribute to a healthy gut microbiome.
Yeah, I love a good kimchi pancake.
Oh, nice.
So it sounds like we can boost our immunity by eating a rainbow of fruits and vegetables
Yes.
and incorporating some fermented goodies into our diet.
Yeah.
What else can we do to support our gut health
Yeah.
and in turn our immune system?
So there's growing evidence that spending time in nature
Oh, interesting.
can positively impact our gut microbiome.
I've definitely noticed that I feel calmer and more grounded
Yeah.
after spending time outdoors. But how does being in nature actually influence those trillions of microorganisms in our gut?
Well, it's thought that exposure to diverse microbes in the environment through
Okay.
soil, air, and water
Right.
can increase the diversity of our own gut microbiome.
So it's like we're literally absorbing the goodness of nature.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And this brings us to another fascinating connection,
Okay.
the link between our gut microbiome and mental health.
Okay. I'm all ears. I've heard about this gut-brain connection,
Yeah.
but I would love to hear more about it.
So there's a growing body of research
Okay.
that suggests this bidirectional communication pathway
Okay.
between the gut and the brain,
Okay.
often referred to as the gut-brain axis.
So our gut and our brain are actually talking to each other.
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
They communicate through this complex network of nerves, hormones,
Right.
and immune signaling molecules.
That's amazing. How does this gut-brain axis impact our mental health?
So it's thought that imbalances in the gut microbiome can contribute to mood disorders, anxiety,
Oh, wow.
even cognitive decline.
So taking care of our gut health might actually be beneficial for our mental well-being.
There's definitely evidence to support that.
Wow.
And conversely, chronic stress can negatively impact our gut microbiome,
Right.
creating this vicious cycle.
It's like a delicate ecosystem
It is.
where everything is interconnected. Our physical health, our mental health, and even our environment.
Right.
It all plays a role.
You've perfectly captured the essence of this interconnectedness, and
Yeah.
it's why taking a holistic approach to health is so important.
Right.
We can't just focus on one aspect in isolation.
Right.
We need to consider the whole picture.
So it's about nurturing our minds and bodies, connecting with nature,
Yeah,
and creating a supportive environment where we can thrive.
exactly.
Speaking of supportive environments,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the role of community in promoting public health.
Oh, absolutely. Community plays a vital role. It's about creating a sense of shared responsibility where we look out for each other and
Ah.
support those who are most vulnerable.
It's about recognizing that our health is interconnected and that by working together,
Yes.
we can create a healthier society for everyone.
You got it. And this can manifest in so many ways,
Right.
from supporting local health initiatives
Yeah.
to creating safe spaces for physical activity to supporting mental health awareness campaigns.
Right. It's inspiring to see people coming together
Is.
to make a difference in their own communities.
It's heartwarming.
And it highlights the fact that we don't have to wait for large-scale systemic changes
Right.
to start making an impact. We can start right where we are
Absolutely.
by connecting with our neighbors, supporting local organizations,
Yes.
advocating for policies that promote health and well-being.
Exactly. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to that collective effort
Right?
to create a healthier world.
It's about empowering ourselves and each other
Yeah.
to take ownership of our health
Yes.
and create a ripple effect of positive change.
Absolutely.
And that brings up the issue of health equity as well.
Yes.
We need to make sure that everyone has equal access to healthcare and resources,
Absolutely.
regardless of their background or circumstances.
Health equity is a fundamental pillar of a just and thriving society.
Yeah.
We need to address those systemic barriers
Right.
that prevent certain communities from accessing quality health care and
Yeah.
opportunities for well-being.
It's about creating a level playing field
It is.
where everyone has the chance to live a healthy and fulfilling life.
Exactly. And it's a complex issue with multifaceted solutions.
Yeah.
But it's something that we absolutely need to prioritize
Right.
as we strive to create a healthier future for all.
Well, it seems like we've ventured into some profound territory here,
Oh, yeah.
exploring this intersection of individual responsibility, community well-being,
Right.
and societal structures.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
It is a lot to digest.
But it's also very inspiring
It is.
to think about the potential for positive change.
Yeah. But before we get too carried away with these grand ideas,
Yeah.
I want to bring us back down to a more practical level.
Okay.
We've been talking about the importance of staying informed
Right.
and making sound decisions about our health.
Yes.
But in an age of information overload,
Yeah.
it can be challenging to know what to trust
It can't.
and where to turn for guidance.
It's tough.
So what advice do you have for our listeners on navigating this complex landscape of health information?
Yeah.
How can we become more discerning consumers of information?
That's a crucial question and one that's more relevant than ever
Yeah.
in our hyper-connected world.
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with information,
Yes.
from news articles and social media posts
Right.
to marketing claims, anecdotal evidence.
Right.
It can be so overwhelming to sift through it all
It is.
and determine what's accurate and reliable and
Yeah.
relevant to our own health needs.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose of information.
It is a fire hose.
Where do we even begin to make sense of it all?
Well, I think the first step is to cultivate a healthy skepticism.
Okay.
Don't blindly accept everything you read or hear,
Right.
even if it comes from a source you generally trust.
So it's about questioning assumptions
Yes.
and digging a little deeper to verify the information.
Exactly. Look for evidence-based information.
Okay.
Ideally from reputable sources,
Right.
like peer-reviewed scientific journals,
Right.
government health agencies, or well-respected medical organizations.
So we're talking like the CDC,
Yes.
the WHO, the Mayo Clinic, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Those organizations have rigorous processes for evaluating information
Right.
and ensuring its accuracy.
What about those sensational headlines or clickbait articles
Oh, yeah.
that seem to be everywhere these days?
Right.
How can we tell if they're legit or just trying to grab our attention?
That's where those critical thinking skills come in.
Right.
Pay attention to the language used in the headline or the article. Is it overly dramatic or sensationalized?
Right.
Does it make grand claims or promises
Yeah.
that seem too good to be true?
It's like those miracle cures or one weird trick headlines.
Exactly. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. So we need to be wary of those attention-grabbing tactics.
Yes.
And focus on finding information from credible sources
Right.
that present the facts in a balanced and objective way.
Exactly.
Another helpful tip is to look for information that cites its sources.
Yes, look for those sources.
Okay.
Reputable sources will back up their claims with evidence from scientific studies
Right.
or other reliable data.
So it's about following the trail of breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And making sure the information is grounded in solid research.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to cross-reference information.
Right.
If you come across something that seems questionable or contradictory,
Right.
check it against information from other reputable sources.
It's like being a detective gathering evidence
Yeah.
and piecing together the puzzle to form an accurate picture.
I love that analogy.
That's a great one.
And finally, remember that health information is constantly evolving.
It is.
What was considered true a few years ago
Right.
might be outdated or even disproven by new research.
Exactly. So it's about staying curious and
Precisely.
keeping an open mind.
The world of health and science is always advancing.
It is.
So we need to be willing to adapt our understanding as new information emerges.
Absolutely.
Those are some really valuable tips
Yeah.
for navigating the information maze. I feel like I'm already becoming a more discerning consumer
That's great.
of health information.
I love that.
But before we wrap up this segment, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The role of healthcare providers in guiding our health decisions.
Absolutely. Your healthcare provider is such a crucial resource.
Yeah.
They have access to your medical history. They understand your individual needs.
Right.
And they can provide personalized guidance based on the latest scientific evidence. They're like our trusted navigators
They are.
in this vast and complex world of health.
Exactly. And don't hesitate to reach out to them with any questions or concerns you might have.
Right.
They're there to help you make informed decisions.
And it's not just about seeking guidance when we're sick or facing a specific health challenge.
Right.
It's also about building a strong and trusting relationship with our healthcare providers.
Yes.
So that we feel comfortable discussing any concerns we might have,
Absolutely.
no matter how big or small.
That open and honest communication with your healthcare provider is essential
It is.
for a healthy and fulfilling life.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end this part of our deep dive on.
Yeah.
We've explored the complexities of public health, the importance of individual responsibility and community well-being,
Right.
and the power of staying informed and seeking guidance from trusted sources.
Yes,
But there's still so much more to uncover.
there is.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into some even more fascinating territory,
I'm excited.
exploring the cutting-edge research that's shaping the future of health and well-being.
Yes.
So stay tuned, and we'll see you back here soon.
I can't wait to dive into those fascinating frontiers with you.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to continue exploring all these fascinating health topics.
I know, right?
It's amazing how much we've uncovered already.
Yeah.
From the resurgence of the flu and whooping cough
Right.
to the complexities of the immunity gap and the crucial role of vaccines.
It's incredible how much there is to learn about our bodies and how everything's connected.
Right.
Our health, our environment, our social structures. And as we delve into the research that's shaping the future of health,
Yeah.
it becomes even more apparent that we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
It really does feel like we're on the cusp of like
Yeah.
a whole new era of health and wellness,
Right.
where scientific advancements are opening up these incredible possibilities for prevention,
Yeah.
treatment, and even personalized approaches to well-being. What are some of the most exciting developments you've been following?
Well, one area that's particularly fascinating is personalized medicine,
Okay.
where treatments are tailored to an individual's unique genetic makeup,
Right.
lifestyle, and environmental factors.
It's like having a healthcare plan designed specifically for you,
Exactly.
taking into account all the little nuances that make you you.
Yeah, it's all about you.
What are some examples of how personalized medicine is being applied in practice?
One great example is in cancer treatment.
Okay.
We're now able to analyze an individual's tumor cells
Okay.
to identify specific genetic mutations that are driving the cancer's growth.
Wow.
And this allows doctors to select targeted therapies
Okay.
that are more likely to be effective with fewer side effects.
That's incredible. So it's like taking a laser-focused approach
Exactly.
to treating cancer rather than relying on those more generalized treatments
Right.
that might not work for everyone.
Exactly. And this personalized approach is being explored in other areas as well. Cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, even mental health.
It's not just about treating illnesses. It's also about like
Right.
optimizing our well-being
Absolutely.
based on our individual needs.
Exactly.
What about the role of technology
Oh, yeah.
in shaping the future of health?
Big one.
You know, things like wearable devices, telehealth, artificial intelligence.
Technology is playing such a transformative role.
Right.
Wearable devices like smartwatches and fitness trackers,
Yeah.
they let people monitor their health metrics in real time.
Right.
So it's empowering them to take a more proactive approach to their well-being.
It's like having a little personal health coach
I know, right?
right on your wrist.
Right there.
What about telehealth?
Yeah, telehealth has revolutionized access to healthcare,
Right?
allowing people to consult with their doctors remotely from their own homes.
Oh,
So convenient,
it really is.
especially for people in rural areas or with limited mobility.
It's breaking down those barriers,
Yeah.
making healthcare more accessible. What about artificial intelligence?
Well, huge.
I know that's kind of a buzzword.
It is.
It gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
How is it actually being applied in healthcare?
It's being used in so many ways,
Yeah.
from analyzing medical images
Wow.
to predicting disease outbreaks
Okay.
to developing personalized treatment plans.
It sounds like AI has the potential to like revolutionize healthcare
It really does.
in ways we can't even imagine yet.
Absolutely. But even with all these incredible advancements,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that technology is a tool.
Right.
You know, it's up to us as humans to use these tools wisely
Right.
and ethically.
To improve our health and well-being.
Exactly.
It's about finding that balance, between
Right.
embracing innovation
Yeah.
and preserving the human touch.
That human connection,
Yeah.
empathy, and the wisdom that comes from experience.
That's so important.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the role of community in shaping a healthier future.
Oh, community is vital. You know, it's about creating this culture of health and well-being,
Right.
supporting each other, sharing knowledge, advocating for policies that promote health equity,
Yeah.
access to care for all.
It's about recognizing that our health is interconnected
It is.
and we all have a role to play
Absolutely.
in creating a healthier society.
Yeah. What are some examples of community-based initiatives?
Yeah. What are some things that are actually working?
Countless examples.
No,
You know,
okay.
communities coming together to address health challenges.
Yeah.
You know, organizing farmers markets to provide access to fresh produce,
Okay.
creating safe spaces for physical activity,
Right.
supporting mental health awareness campaigns.
Right. It's inspiring to see people
It is.
coming together like that
It's heartwarming.
to make a difference in their communities. And it highlights the fact
Yeah.
we don't have to wait for those big systemic changes
Right.
to start making a positive impact. We can start where we are, by connecting with our neighbors, supporting local organizations,
Yes.
advocating for policies that promote health and well-being.
Every action, no matter how small, contributes to that collective effort
Right.
to create a healthier world.
It's about empowering ourselves and each other
It is.
to take ownership of our health and create that ripple effect of positive change.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that brings us to the issue of health equity
Right.
as well. We need to make sure everyone has that equal access to healthcare and resources,
Absolutely.
regardless of their background or circumstances.
Health equity is a fundamental pillar
Yeah.
of a just and thriving society.
Yes.
We need to address those systemic barriers
Right.
that prevent certain communities from accessing quality healthcare
Right.
and opportunities for well-being.
It's about creating that level playing field where everyone has the
Yeah.
chance to live a healthy and fulfilling life.
Exactly. And it's a complex issue,
Yeah.
but one that we need to prioritize.
As we strive to create that healthier future for all,
Absolutely.
we ventured into some profound territory here.
We have.
Exploring individual responsibility,
Right.
community well-being,
Yeah.
societal structures.
It's a lot to digest, but it's also inspiring to think about
It
the
is.
potential for positive change.
But before we get too carried away with these grand ideas,
Right.
I want to bring us back to a more practical level.
Okay.
We've talked about staying informed and making sound decisions about our health.
Yes.
But in this age of information overload,
It's tough.
it can be challenging to know what to trust and where to turn for guidance.
Absolutely.
So what advice do you have for our listeners
Okay.
on how to navigate this complex landscape of health information?
So it's about becoming discerning consumers of information and avoiding misinformation.
Right. How do we do that?
That's a crucial question, and it's more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with information. News articles, social media posts, marketing claims, anecdotal evidence.
Right.
It can be so overwhelming to sift through it all
It really is.
and determine what's accurate and reliable
Yeah.
and relevant to our own health needs.
It's like drinking from a fire hose.
It is a fire hose of information.
So where do we even begin to make sense of it all?
I think the first step is to cultivate a healthy skepticism.
Okay.
Don't blindly accept everything you read or hear,
Right.
even if it comes from a source you generally trust.
Okay.
Look for evidence-based information,
Right.
ideally from reputable sources.
Okay.
Peer-reviewed scientific journals, government health agencies,
Right.
well-respected medical organizations.
So the CDC, the WHO, those kinds of places.
Exactly. Those organizations have rigorous processes
Right.
for evaluating information and ensuring accuracy.
What about those sensational headlines or those clickbait articles
Yeah, those are tough.
that seem to be everywhere these days?
Right.
How do we know if they're legit?
That's where those critical thinking skills come in.
Right.
Pay attention to the language.
Okay.
Is it overly dramatic or sensationalized?
Right.
Does it make these grand claims that
Yeah.
sound too good to be true?
It's like those miracle pure headlines.
Exactly. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. So be wary of those attention-grabbing tactics
Yes,
and focus on finding information from credible sources
absolutely.
that present the facts in a balanced way.
In an objective way.
Right.
Yeah.
Another helpful tip is to look for information that cites its sources.
Yes. Always look for those sources.
Reputable sources will back up their claims with evidence
Yeah,
from scientific studies
exactly.
or other reliable data.
It's about following the trail of breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
making sure that information is grounded
Yeah.
in solid research.
And don't be afraid to cross-reference.
Yes.
If you come across something that seems questionable or contradictory,
Right.
check it against another source.
Exactly. A reputable source.
Yeah, it's like being a detective,
It is.
gathering evidence,
Yeah.
piecing together the puzzle
I love that.
to get an accurate picture.
Great analogy.
And finally, remember that health information is constantly evolving.
It is always changing.
What was considered true a few years ago
Right.
might be outdated or disproven.
Exactly.
So stay curious.
Yes.
Keep an open mind.
The world of health and science is always advancing.
Right. So we have to be willing to adapt our understanding as new information comes out.
Absolutely.
Those are some really valuable tips.
Good.
I feel like I'm already becoming a more discerning consumer of information.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the role of healthcare providers
Oh, yeah.
in guiding our health decisions.
Your healthcare provider is such a crucial resource.
Right?
They have access to your medical history.
Right.
They understand your individual needs.
Yeah.
They can provide personalized guidance
Right.
based on the latest scientific evidence.
They're like our trusted navigators.
Yeah, they are.
In this vast and complex world of health.
Exactly. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns.
Right.
You're there to help you make informed decisions.
Right. And it's not just about seeking guidance when we're sick.
Right.
It's about building that strong relationship.
It is about that relationship.
That we feel comfortable discussing our concerns no matter how big or small.
That open and honest communication is so essential
It is.
for a healthy and fulfilling life.
That's a perfect note to end this deep dive on.
It is.
We've explored the complexities of public health,
Wait.
the importance of individual responsibility, community well-being,
Right.
and the power of staying informed and seeking guidance from trusted sources.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been an incredible journey exploring all these things.
I agree.
And dear listener, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Inspiring.
Remember, your health is your wealth.
It is.
And by investing in your well-being,
Right.
you're investing in a brighter future
Absolutely.
for yourself and the world around you.
Curving.
Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious,
Yeah.
and keep exploring.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
See ya.